in London, where Africa Week has kicked off at King's College, held under the theme, Renewing African Agency in the New World Disorder. The event opened with a keynote address by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza. Let's get an update from Khaya around what's been happening on the ground. Khaya, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. The address by the Speaker of Parliament was a plea, really, for unity and for Africa to be taken quite serious. What were some of the other sentiments shared by some of the other interlocutors on the program?
It is quite noisy, actually. I'm even battling.
Well, it doesn't seem like Khayelihle Khumalo can hear us at the moment. It is quite a loud room.
Certainly,
oh, there we go.
Very invigorating debates here in London, really looking at the very religious issue around agency in Africa, but also most importantly, we just heard from the National Assembly Speaker, Mr. Didiza, really talking about an array of issues, especially given the current geopolitical context, but also where the issues around peace and security as well, but also issues around mineral beneficiation in Africa is quite a very hot issue, and she joins us now. So, Madam Speaker, thank you so much indeed for your time. So, quite a very comprehensive address that you just gave here at the King's College, but essentially just galvanizing supports around the agency in Africa.
Yes, one of the important things about this week, as you know, that this is the Africa Week, where the King's College and Africa Leadership Center actually have a week of activities where they reflect on important issues for the African continent. One of the thematic areas for this Africa Week is about resourcing African agency. What can we do to make sure that those things that as Africa we want to ensure that they progress, they change our, environment, is properly resourced. One of the issues that we appreciated is that we do have continental frameworks such as the Africa Agenda 2063, we've got the New Africa's Partnership for Development, DEPAD, and many others. But the challenge has been on how those are resourced and how those are implemented. But also looking inwardly as Africa to say what can we do as member states to make sure that those frameworks that we have agreed to, we ourselves mobilize internal resource for their execution. And we're also reflecting on what other things we need more than money, but also how do we utilize our human capital, our people who are our resource, to be able to create institutions that can actually drive African agency. And how can our young people, not only about being the future, but currently, how can we engage working with young people on actually developing the Africa that we all want?
And just once again, Madam Speaker, another very critical issue, but tying in very closely with South Africa's G20 around the minerals, the framework that came out, but also looking at how Africa is well endowed with these resources, making sure that we reach that level where it's just not a very extractive exercise, raw minerals, but making sure that value addition happens on the continent. What can you say on that score?
I must say that the outcome of the G20, particularly that platform that was created on how we could actually coordinate and utilize our resources effectively and not just remain in extractive economies as a continent, but how we can actually determine how those are beneficiated in our countries, but also how we can leverage on those for our own development.
Madam Speaker, before we let you go, a pressing issue globally. We know South Africa is a peace-loving country, and we saw the statement coming out from the presidency calling for a de-escalation. We know that you have a very massive powers vested in you as a National Assembly Speaker. You're just reading to the current situation in the Middle East, a region that has really suffered immensely, especially when you talk about the geopolitics and issues around peace and security.
As you indicate that our president has actually issued a statement calling for de-escalation, and actually ensuring that we choose the path for diplomacy and negotiation to find peace in the Middle East, but also globally.
All right, Madam Speaker, thank you so much indeed for your time. Obviously, a very invigorating debate here at the King's College, and really just fleshing out those key challenges facing the African continent, but also calling for very pragmatic steps in tackling these issues. So with that, back to you in studio.
Khayelihle, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. Khayelihle Khumalo speaking there to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza.